from the last year's race, I felt that my bike had too narrow of tires. So I'm like, all right, that's it. I'm running the Bear Claw. I'm running 50 tires. It's going to be so awesome. I'll just sit in until we hit mile 35 and I'll be cruising across all that sand. And, we're like 3 miles in. I'm like, this is the wrong bike. This is the wrong tires. I missed the start. Call my wife. Tell her to pick me up. Like, it's just like, you're like realizing at this point, you're like, this is going to be a long day.
From KOM Cycling and Michigan Midpack Media, welcome to the Dirty Chain Podcast, the podcast that covers the cycling scene from the viewpoint of the Michigan Midpack. I am your host, Trevor, and on this episode, Barry-Roubaix strikes back. Fresh off an absolute beaut of a race last October, Barry is back in its normal springtime spot with a vengeance. This year we were greeted with a proper Barry-Roubaix. Snow, rain, wind, ice, you name it, mud. There was a lot of lead up and anticipation as myself, and I'm sure all other 4,000 other participants, anxiously watched the weather. And for pretty good reason, this year we saw some of the toughest conditions that I've ever encountered. But I'm convinced, especially now several days removed, that it is those exact conditions and elements of the unknown that makes events like Barry so special. Despite the fear of weather, so many of you came out to tackle the 18, 36, 62, and 100-mile course, and hats off to all of you. And the celebration afterward with several Founders beers was that much more sweet. If you haven't experienced Barry-Roubaix yet, I truly encourage you to do so. There is nothing quite like a bike party with 4,000 other cyclists. Okay, so I took on the 100-mile event and thankfully finished. And for many of us along the way, we were met with mechanicals and iced over cassettes and derailleurs. I spent a ton of time on the side of the road trying to chip the ice off my bike. To little effect. But after I finished, I ran into my buddy Tom Keller, who shared with me how he relieved his mechanical issues in a pretty creative way. So I had to call him up and get the full story. Tom, or the Tiki on Instagram, he races for Bloomington Cycle Racing Team out of Bloomington, Illinois, and is a Barry-Roubaix vet. I think he said this was maybe his 7th year racing Barry. He was the perfect person to swap war stories about our day and our Barry experience, and I hope you enjoy it. Again, congrats to all those who raced. It was amazing to see so many people in Hastings, so many cyclists, and of course, a huge thank you to the Barry-Roubaix crew for making the party happen. All right, let's listen about our crazy day at Barry-Roubaix. Okay, now everything you say is on the record, man, so...
Woo, legal. Gotta talk to my attorney, my agent, my talent agent.
Yeah, I mean, everything goes through my attorney, and we'll send it over to your attorney afterwards just to make sure that, we're not spewing any libel or anything like that. It's a real...
well, this is trade secrets, I've been told.
Yeah. First of all, it's good to see that you made it home in one piece.
Oh, for sure. It was almost longer to drive home than it was to do the race.
That's like, is it 6 hours or something, or 7 hours to Bloomington?
No, I'm just kidding. It's like 4.5 plus, stop, get some food, stop, get some gas,
And you left because we saw each other right at the end, and you left right away, right?
Yeah.
Like, but yeah, well, I mean, we saw each other right at the finish, maybe an hour after we both finished or something like that. And you were out, like you had to get on the road.
Yeah, I spent some time in my car thinking about life and cycling afterwards, trying to stop shivering, and then took my shoe covers off my shoes. And it was funny that I had literally sand and mud molds inside of the shoe covers. And my teammate walked over. He had done the 62, and he's like, "You want to go back up there?" And he walks up, and I'm like half naked in my car, and he goes, "I'm going to give you a couple more minutes." I'm like still shivering. I'm like, yeah. I'm almost there.
I probably screwed around with my shoe covers and my shoes for like, it felt like an eternity trying to get those stupid things off. Especially like the BOA dials, you have to like pull and my fingers were frozen, and I was like, I either got to find someone with not frozen fingers, or I'm going to have to cut the laces off of my shoes to get these things off my feet.
Yeah, when your hands are cold, for sure, like those small mechanical movements that seem so simple in life, you're like, come on.
Yeah, the man, that I don't know. There's probably so many things to say. I asked you to join me because you had some creative trailside mechanic fixes, but do you have some time to like talk a little bit more about the race before we get to that?
Yeah, absolutely. Whatever you want to talk about, man.
Okay, so well, first of all, tell us who you are and where you're from and what you do, and tell us about your sideburns and whatever.
Well, I'll start off with that. I saw my nephews this weekend, and the best quote was, "Oh yeah, you're my uncle with the freakishly long sideburns." And I was like, "They're called mutton chops, jerk. Sit down." But I mean, it was great because the kids, they tell it to you straight up how it is.
Hey, so, I have a quick question about that. When do sideburns cease to be sideburns and become mutton chops? Is there like a length? Tell me about the specifics there.
So I always think
if you don't know, make it up.
Oh, I absolutely know. I've enjoyed growing facial hair for a long time, especially since I don't have any hair. It's one of those things that you can do to flare up your face a little bit. I've been a long time supporter of different Movember type activities. So we used to always grow funny mustaches. I've had full on wax Raleigh fingers before. I've had beard with the mustache. I've had friendly mutton chops is where I think it connects over the top. So it actually has it minus the chin. So there's a great diagram. I think it's beards.org where it really breaks down all the specifics. But this has always been kind of funny. One of my friends in Chicago, Troy Brown, we always call it Muttons of March. And then just grow crazy things. And, I'm in work from home for a long time now. So it's even less pressure to look presentable, other than my poor wife has to deal with it. So this is actually just mutton chops. An average person would have some hair too that connects to it, but then I just shave chin, neck, and then the mustache off. So I believe it's called friendly if you connect it across the mustache. So the friendly mutton chop. Yeah.
Man, you weren't joking. You do know a lot about the mutton chops and sideburns and whatnot.
It's not my first time around the facial hair block, but I haven't had a good top layer of hair for a long time now. So,
well, who needs that? I mean, that's overrated for sure.
I mean, this is way more arrow. I mean, that's what I've always been told.
So, Tom, we've written together a couple times now, a few times, and I mean, last year, Barry, we rode together the entire race. We even kind of had a little bit of a sprint off at the end, if I remember correctly.
We almost died at the finish line. Yeah, I mean, I believe it was Jenny Acker who stopped us at the finish line because there had been that real bad crash. So,
right.
Yeah, I was super stoked with the changes they made to the finish of the course this year too. By the way, I think that was way better and way safer. So I really like.
I agree. It was definitely sketchy last year when we took that left turn and we were cruising in, and then it was like everyone's like slow down. But yeah, we rode together most of all of last year, and we even pre-rode the course the week before. This year I didn't see you at all, man. What happened?
So, this will tie into the ingeniousness later. I'm always guilty of the 1 or 2 last bathroom stops before the start of the race. And I've always taken advantage of the controlled rollout car.
Oh yeah.
That way you can kind of, they line us up, more than a 1 lane wide, and the mat's only 1 lane. And, you try to be as polite as possible. And I was off to the right, and I was somewhere around, 3rd or 4th row, but to the right. So I was like, no problem. I'm just going to scoot right in. And Matt was being real clear with the directions and saying, don't hit these cones. Don't hit this sensor on the left and the right.
Yep.
And literally the person who cut in before me knocked over the cone. And Matt stepped out, and, he's being very polite, but he's just like, hold on, wait. And I was like, at that point, you just like, you want to be super polite. You want to be respectful. And it was like, just rider, boom, 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 goes by. And you're like, oh, well, this is going to be a little harder controlled rollout. And then they finally let me in, and literally I could literally see groups up the road with separation already.
Oh my God.
So it was insane. Like, that was probably the fastest start I've ever seen of a 100-mile race. And I mean, I buried myself for as much as I could, and I still was in, I think, group 3, probably by that left turn off the road onto gravel. And at that point, like, what was that cross or headwind? It was like 17 miles an hour or something.
Yeah, it was bad right away. And even the start was kind of there were some weird things there, but I think even if we were all together, we would have been separated. That huge group would have been separated pretty quickly already. Like, even if it was like a real slow neutral rollout. It's kind of funny. I was telling someone that lives here in the Lansing area, it was her first time. Her name's Claudia, and I was like, listen, don't worry about the beginning. It's going to be relaxed, and we're going to be all together for like 30-ish miles, and you'll be fine, and just, don't worry about it. And by mile 2, I'm like, what is happening? This is already all split up, and of course, like everyone is all like worked up because of the weather, and it was compared to last year, and last year is so fresh in our mind because it was so close. It couldn't have been a different day. Completely different day.
Yeah, it was crazy. And then as soon as you took the left, you could tell everybody was flying because there was bottles everywhere already. Like, whatever mile marker that was, like mile 2 or whatever, there was bottles everywhere and just potholes everywhere from the roads. And you're like, the lines people were going, it was like spaghetti noodles crossing all over the place. You're like, this is going to be a crazy race. And that was like, light snow, and it was like, 34 degrees or whatever. And then once those groups, like even the groups that were in front of us, they started to explode and people were falling back. And it's like, me and a couple of guys that are with, we like blew up already chasing. And we're like mile 3 or whatever. We're like, this is the most brutal start ever. And at that point I was like, well, you did this to yourself, Tom. We're going to be in this for a long, long ride. And from the last year's race, I felt that my bike had too narrow of tires. So this year with the weather forecast, being an Illinois person, our roads and gravel do not rebound like your guys' do, and they do not handle moisture. So I'm like, all right, that's it. I'm running the Bear Claw. I'm running 50 tires. It's going to be so awesome. I'll just sit in until we hit mile 35, and I'll be cruising across all that sand. And, we're like 3 miles in. I'm like, this is the wrong bike. This is the wrong tires. I missed the start. Call my wife. Tell her to pick me up. Like, it's just like, you're like realizing at this point, you're like, this is going to be a long day. So that's how I did it. And that's why you never saw me. And that's why I was in the car for a while afterwards, contemplating the meaning of life. But I always like to say the worst races are the best training rides. So, I mean, you're never going to push yourself for what unfortunately was 6 hours and 35 minutes, not 6 hours and 30, 6:35, like that. So, but I probably say that I probably imploded and exploded multiple times before even the halfway part. But I rolled across the halfway point like 40th. So I was like, and obviously you don't know that at the time, but you're just like, I'm in no man's land. So I have no idea of how many people I passed between the start and the half, but then I ended up finishing 24th. So it was one of those things where you're like, well, you had a good ride for what it was, but in the end, it was all my fault. So it's a lot. I find it a lot easier to forgive myself when I know it's like under my control, because then you're like, oh, you can fix that next time, and it's not like a mechanical issue or somebody else crashing takes you out. You're like, it's easier to, I think, move on when you're like, well, you're an idiot. Let's learn from that.
Well, I mean, you can't. I don't know, man. I mean, there's a lot out of your control. Sure, like maybe the tires weren't. I mean, I went with bigger tires this time too. I rode 40s last year, and with all the sand and all that, I was like, man, I gotta get something. So I maxed out. Like, I can only fit 45s on my bike, and I maxed it out. And I was pretty happy with my, given the mud and everything, that my tire choice was really, I think it was spot on. I think it was like that good mixture of still fast, where they needed to be, but could handle the mud pretty well. But regardless of that, like, there was only so much we could have anticipated for, and so many things we could have done. But at the end of the day, the name of the game, it was the weather. Like, that was the star of the day, and it took a toll on us all. I mean, I think I'm interested to know what the difference was when at 10 o'clock in the morning, when people started the 62 and then the 36, like, because when they rolled by me, I mean, their bikes looked clean. They looked like, there was such a difference between me, that I was just trashed, like, not only muddy, but I had like icicles coming off my different parts of my body. Like, when I quit, my wife Rachel was like, "There's ice all over you. Is that like a frozen snot rocket?" I was like, "Probably." But it was such a difference between what, and I'm sure like some of the conditions for the 60, 62, or now it's 60, or whatever it is, 60 and 30 were bad. But I think there's something completely different. I don't think any of them saw what we saw right at the beginning. And there's some great pictures, like some of those pictures that Rob took of us, like, through the mud right there at the beginning. It's like that is a pretty good representation of what it felt like to be out there.
Yeah, I agree. Because when I was like jumping from group to group to group, I'd be in these groups and I look around and nobody else had a green number plate. And then they'd all look at your bike and go, "Where have you been?" Like, those are the questions. They're like, "What happened to you? Did you crash?" And I go, "No." It's just like, because you would see, like you're saying, the back of anybody doing the 100, like, all around their chainstay, their forks, their derailleurs, just everything was taupe or brown.
Yep.
My Garmin Vary on the back looks like a big turd, like a big wet Baby Ruth floating in Caddyshack or something. Yeah. So I definitely agree, because when you saw somebody in a group that was somebody who did the 100, you knew it right away. You didn't have to look at their green plate. You were like, "You've been through some shit today. Congratulations, you're still rolling."
Even more than that, anyone that was riding with me at the end, they didn't have to look at me. They could tell by the way my bike sounded. Because like every time we hit a hill, I couldn't shift. Like I have a 2x, and I couldn't shift into the small ring up top, because it was just covered in ice. And I had to stop a couple times to try to get my derailleur to even move, and it finally did. But then I realized that whole little ring was just ice. There was no teeth that the chain could get to. So I would accidentally hit it to the small ring a couple times and the chain would just fall right off. So I was in extremes going up the wall. I was in my big ring, big ring, and it was just like crunch, crunch, crunch. And people would look around like, what is wrong with your bike?
Yeah, I had a one by setup and I had 3 gears in the middle. So that's what I had. Like I didn't have like the bottom 3 or 4 and I didn't have the top 3. So I didn't have any of what I would call, the climbing gears, which you get so excited about this setup with like a 50 to 10 back cassette or whatever it is. And you always wanted one more. And in your mind, you're like, I'm not at the climb, the easiest one yet. And then you hit it and it would literally go, because it would just skip and jump and jump. Yep. And if you've ever had a derailleur not set right and it goes into your wheel and breaks all your stuff, like that's almost the sound right before it. So instantly right away, you're like, no, shift harder. And then, like you said, it was literally, I've never raced single speed, but I feel like I know a little bit of it. And then I met up with a guy on the race course for the last, maybe like we were together up until like 5-6 miles to go. And he was a single speeder. And I was like, I feel bad, but then I see you and you did this by choice. And he's like, yeah, but there's no single speed category. So I don't know which one of us is dumber. So yeah, it was the same way. It was like you hit these climbs and you just paperboy it, left side of the road to the right side of the road, left side of the road. Oh man, it was brutal.
So I lost my climbing gears, and then before I realized I lost my climbing gears, I realized the hard way that I didn't have my 11 tooth and whatever that other tooth in the back, like the 2 small rings in the back. Yep. And that's how I lost the front group. It was, I was spinning out and I'm like, I don't have any more gears. And that was my point. It was probably only 20 miles in or maybe a little over that where I was like, okay, this is going to be a long day. If I'm already losing the front group, but I heard, and I might be wrong, but so last year when we got to the first turn and it was like mile 35 or 34 where we got to the first, the seasonal road section. Yep. I mean, how big was the group we were in at that point?
I mean, it was the first, everybody was still there.
Yeah. Like it had to be like 50 people or something or more than that. Yeah. I don't know. It was enormous. And then that was the point where everyone separated. I heard that this year the front group was 6 people at that point. I mean, that just tells you how hard, that first 34 miles, like what condition that was in. Because on a normal day, those roads are fast and smooth, and they have a little bit of rolling hills to them. But you're not going to make a huge separation. But yeah, but this year was totally different.
Yep, I agree. I think last year we had like some monster tailwind and stuff, even going into that first 35 miles. So it wasn't as much. Because I remember on the back half of the course we had a lot more headwinds. So I think this year with the head and cross going in, the people who had the strength and the ability to hammer, they just hammered. And then it was just like you said, just people shooting out the back door, whether it was fitness or mechanical issues. Because I think with those temperatures dropping from the start until, 2-3 hours in, and all the stuff that we rode through, the splash, the puddles, the snow coming sideways, and then that temp drops like 4 degrees from like 34 to 30. It's literally whatever gears you weren't in. Like now I'll be like, man, it feels like it's getting colder. Tom, use every gear, up, down, up, all the way up, all the way down. Like whatever you would have to do. But in the moment, you're just like, this is where I'm at. This is where I feel comfortable. Yep. This is where I feel comfortable. And then all of a sudden you're like, I don't feel comfortable. And you're like, I don't have anything else. That's it. Like there's no other gears to go to.
Speaking of the cold, did you run a hydration pack?
So I did. And one of the mistakes that I didn't make, I guess, is when I was at the start, one of the guys in front of me, like he took off his like windbreaker and handed it to his, friend or father or whoever it was to start off the race. And I had like a Gore Shake dry jacket on. I just had it unzipped and I'm like, maybe I'll just leave it open and leave it on. And I think that was probably the difference because I'd have the tube, I'd take a drink and then just kind of put it back underneath that layer.
Yeah.
Because I heard a lot of people say that their hoses froze up. Their bottles froze up.
Yeah. I ran 2 like small bottles with GoFar, and a lot of GoFar. Like that's my nutrition. I had some other nutrition too, but so I had maybe like 3 scoops of GoFar in each bottle, but my main water was my hydration pack. And I remember when I filled it up the night before, because I was like, I don't need 2 liters in it, because I have bottles that can be cold. And I was like, I think I'll put like 1,400 milliliters, like just a little over half, but and definitely froze. I mean, it froze so early, I couldn't get anything, and whatever. And so when I actually left it in the car, and it the bladder was like a rock, but I took it out to thaw out, and I looked at it later, and I was like, 1,400 milliliters. Like I guess I drank nothing.
Like, oh, I'm glad I carried an extra pound and a half with me for 103 miles. Cool.
Exactly. So stupid, but yeah, I think that's what I needed to do. It was just the hose was freezing or frozen, completely frozen. So before we get to your thing, because I mean it's probably the best story I've heard, or the worst story I've heard. There was a lot of lead up, like I can't say we weren't warned or we didn't know what we were getting into, because everyone was, if you followed like the Barry-Roubaix course conditions on Facebook, it was like that thing blew up the last few days before the race, and people were freaking out, and probably rightly so, because it turned out to be a real shit show. But like, one of the big things was the water spot, so like there was, for those that don't know, there's a spot that's underwater quite a bit. And, last year in October, when it's been dry, there was still water that we had to ride through. And so of course there's still going to be water. And I don't know how many yards it was of a like knee deep water. I don't know, maybe 20 yards. I don't know. What do you think? 10 yards? Whatever.
Well, that one video that Matt teased us with, where he walked it, it seemed like it was quite long, like, because it was like one section, then there was a little bit of sand beach to it, and then there was another section, and he teased us by going, oh, I'm just walking along the left here, it's not too bad. But I mean, you could tell he was up to his knees, and still at the best, like, what was it, maybe 34 degrees or so at the start. Like, I don't know what the high that day during the race was, but it definitely didn't feel like it got warmer until the last hour or two of it, to me.
I think if we go back and look, I think the temperature dropped all day. I think the warmest part of the day was like
the start.
Yeah, the start. But okay, here's my stubborn story. And I just thought, you know what? This is so stupid. Like, I was already through puddles and my feet were wet and frozen and whatever. And I'm like, screw it. I'm walking through this stupid thing.
So, you went through it?
Yeah, I went through it. And it was funny because I was riding through a lot of those seasonal roads with this one other guy, Alex. And I'm like, screw it, I'm doing it. He's like, okay, you're crazy. And he takes the long way around.
Yeah.
He like, I was probably halfway through the water and he was all the way on the other side of it already. There was no reason that you should go through that water. Like, nothing good came out of it whatsoever. It was slow. It was cold. Luckily, like, I don't know. I mean, your body's just like working up so much at that moment that I didn't get too cold from it, but I can see, like, if you had a rough spot, like halfway through and you were slowing down, or like you needed to stop for something and your feet were sopping wet, then you could be in big trouble. But I just kept moving and it was fine. But
did you carry your bike like above you? Did you have your bike above you and you walked it?
No, I just put it on my shoulder. But it was the slowest thing. I was like, this is so stupid. What do I do? I'm wondering, I do wonder how many other, if anyone else did it. Like, it wasn't faster and it was cold. But anyways,
I think that's what you got to ask the listeners. Who else did the 100 who actually went through the water? Let Trevor know.
Yeah. Maybe I'll send him something, like a free something if you went through the water. A pair of socks.
No lies. We need real proof. We need real description of what was the water like. Don't be lying.
Yeah. So, man, what a day. I mean, I know that, I think, if I'm not mistaken, you've done some big, like, long races and experienced some weather in the past. Like, didn't you do Gravel Worlds, the really long one, and had to bail out of that because of the weather?
More what experienced through the weather, but yeah, I had like the perfect storm of a shit show, and like triple flatted, had tubes in like a little keg under the bike somewhere during the night when we had 14 miles of these unrideable mud B roads. Lost the keg off the bike, so my deep dish wheels. Guess how many other people have 80 millimeter stems at the Gravel Worlds race? I can tell you right now, it's nobody in the top 30 because they all rode by me. And it was like, trying to get a 60 millimeter or whatever else stem to pop through a deep dish racing wheel to put air on it was brutal. And then went through tubes, tried sealant, tried tubes again. Like, it was just a mess of people. I was in third, like 180 miles into it. So, and the guy that I was with, or I was battling for third and fourth, he sat there with me for like a couple of minutes because he didn't want to go on by himself either. Cause it's like, he still had 120 miles left to go. Sure. And the sun was just coming up. And he's like, here, do you want a tube? And he gives me a tube, and like, the stem's like, I'm like, thanks, man. And he's like, all right, well, I gotta go. So it's just like people riding by. Hey, do you need anything? Yeah. Do you have any 80 millimeter stems? And they just kept riding. So, but yeah, that was literally, I crashed into like cow fences, ravines, creeks, because you couldn't even ride or walk on the road because each time your bike would lock up. So, I've been through some stuff, and I did a fat bike race earlier this year where definitely my hose froze on my Camelback, so that was a lesson I learned at that one. But I think this one snuck up on us. I think that the temps didn't sound horrible, but I think it was the temps dropping with the wind, which made everything come at our bikes from the side, and then that combined with the road splash sections. I think I heard a lot of people having the same exact issues that we're talking about. I don't think you could go through a pack of people and not hear somebody's bike going, like they're trying to shift to a gear or something like that. So I know that made it hard to go from group to group. And then every time you hit an incline, you were literally just embarrassingly slow, I felt, is what I felt I looked like.
So, man, snuck up on us, I think, is a great way to explain it. And again, coming right off of last year in October, it's fresh, same course essentially. Part of me was like, it's hard. It's 100 miles. It's a tough race, but I know the course. I've ridden it several times now. I'm not afraid of it. I'm not like, I know I can. And then you get there and it's like, this is totally different than what I expected. Like, this is kicking my ass, like terrible. Like, it was, it goes to show, like, gravel racing or any time you do any sort of event, it can be different from one day to the next. And
I think that you think, oh, this is the third time or fourth time I've ridden this. I know what to expect. It's going to be so much easier. And then there's Acker on the side stroking his beard, and he shakes up the snow globe and he goes, sit back, guys. You're in for a day.
So how did you specifically, so when I'm going down the road, I think the first time I stopped was maybe mile 20 something. And I had already lost the front group, and I realized that it was an ice issue. And I I was by no one. And I thought, you know what? I'm going to spend more time in the wrong gear than if I stop and try to chip some ice off and try to get into the right gear. So I stopped, messed around a bit. And I think I did that. It looked like my Strava said I may have stopped for 6 or 7 minutes. I was surprised at the end. Like, I think once I even dipped it in like a puddle. My try to get my rear derailleur in a puddle to get some water on there. I was spraying it with, the only water I had, my 2 bottles, like just trying to get the ice off of there. So how, I know that you had a creative way of dealing with this. So please let us know, what you did, your creative trailside maintenance.
So I was, just chasing all day, trying to go from one group to the next. So I was, sitting in, trying to recover as much as I could, because like you were saying, it was like awkward spinning to try to get your top end, and it was brutally slow climbing in the wrong gears. But basically, I was rolling with the group till that first sag stop. That's right at that intersection of that light that you don't want to get DQ'd on if you roll.
Yep.
So I think that's where
Middleville is the.
Yep. So I was with a group of probably about 6 or 7 at that point, and literally the light was red and we come rolling up, and the light goes green. One guy comes out of the pit, rolls across the street, and I see all 7 turn right into the pit. And I'm like, and I knew that the wind, like that was the end of the worst part of the wind. Like all you had to do was get one more mile, you take the left turn, and then you have a majority of tail or tail cross tail the rest of the day.
Tom,
and
I don't mean to interrupt you, but like knowing this light, man, I had the exact same thing, because I came through it with maybe 1 or 2 other guys, and the guy behind me, I was like, we're gonna hit this light because it was red. We're coming up on it red, and I was like, yes, we're coming up on it red. We're gonna hit this light, and he's like, well, maybe we should just dump into there and chip the ice off our derailleur. And I didn't say anything. And we got up to it, and it was green, and I just flew right by because I'm like, I'm not stopping.
I don't know if it's that natural fight or flight thing or whatever, but you're like, that light, I've been stuck there before. Yep. It seems like forever, and that you don't want to get disqualified over it. So when we roll up and all 7 guys turn right, and then one of them had like support. So it's like a parent's like, what do you need? What do you need? And he's like, I need to clean my drivetrain off. And I'm like, that would be nice, but I don't have anybody to wait on me. So I was like, at that point, I had 2 bottles of scratch super fuel. So I had 400 calories in each bottle and super sticky stuff. Yeah. So that wasn't going to be any good. And then what was I going to do? Drink out of my hydration pack and try to spit it? Like, it would took forever. And I knew at that point that I had at least 6 or 7 of my gears were no good. So I was like, once I saw that green light and there's one guy up the road, I was like, I got to try and drop these 7 guys. This is my one chance. If I can tuck in between that guy, at least then we have a good long stretch. So, but then that just stayed in my mind, was like, man, I wish I had somebody to help me clean off some gears. I wish. So we wound up, I caught that one guy, and then 2 guys from behind caught us. So we had a group of 4 or 5, and we're going down that whole long stretch. And what's that nasty gravel climb then once you cross that road when you're heading out of Middleville? You know what I'm talking about?
I do know what you're talking about.
Yeah. So that's a nasty one.
Yeah, I forget what it is.
But it's like that long straight stretch of nice tailwind, and then the road starts to go up, and you can literally see the cops and the volunteers there, and you can see the crap trail across it, and you're like, oh man. So got good running start, got through there, but then we ran into a section that was literally all super soft wind. So I don't know, we're like mile 40 plus, something like that range in. And one of the benefits of having the tires, which I thought were too wide, was they were great on almost every sand section.
Oh, yeah.
It wasn't the perfect gear, but I had good traction. So I would just grind it. And then finally I got to a spot where I couldn't anymore. And it was just like you had to dismount. And at that point, I thought to myself, Tom, you're going to probably need to pee right now. And Tom, pees are pretty warm. You right away go to the Dumb and Dumber, right? You're like, hey, just let it go. And then I looked down at my cassette, And I had a conversation with my mechanic when I got back, and he said the thought process that you had was actually impressive because I originally wanted my climbing gears right back, but it's a bigger ring. It's more spread out. You're on the side of the trail, half leaning against your bike. And I'm like, well, I guess I'm peeing on my cassette and I'm peeing on the bottom granny gears. So at least once I get out of this deep woods or whatever that road, deep lake area, I'm like, it's going to be a lot of road. I'll be ready to hammer. So I let it go. And people walk by me and just, they're walking by me, looking at me. And I'm like, yep, peeing on my bike, man.
So wait, I already knew the story, but I didn't realize that that people were around you while you were doing it.
It was one of those moments where I was riding with the group that I was with, and I was able to ride further into the mess until we hit like a stretch that was just unrideable sand, I think. And I, had a gap on them, and I'm like, well, now's the time because then they'll come back. I'll be with the group. But you're sitting there, and you're 40 some miles into the race. You're not dehydrated, but you're not super hydrated. And you don't really, really got to go pee, but you can go pee. So it was either, pee off the trail and waste it, or try to turn it into a MacGyver moment and bring back some gears. So I stood there and leaned into my bike. The bike was leaning into me, and I'm peeing on the smallest rings that I got of the cassette. And I'm telling you what, Trevor, the ice is just melting away. But then you got to hold it so you can rotate the cassette a little bit, and that stings a little bit. But in the moment, it's all for the greater good, which is more gears. So I did that. Hop back on the bike. It wasn't a spot where you could use those gears. You're still in whatever the easiest one you had was. We pop out, and I had been bunny hopping, trying all kinds of things today when you're changing the gears, and it started. It was working, and I'm like, oh, I think I got like one or two more or whatever. And then once we got to the water, like you said, it was go down into the water or go right. And I went right, and I looked back, and I had another gap again. And I was like, we're going to get all these gears back. We're going to get them all back. So there was 2 stops, and then plenty of Garmin auto pauses, I think, when you're climbing in the wrong gear on that course. So I think I looked, I was somewhere in like the 5.5 minute range of a stop time. But the great thought process was don't pee and waste it. Pee on your cassette and get the gears back.
I mean, yeah, it is a 2-bird, 1-stone kind of situation for sure. Hey, I do have a question. Are you running SRAM or Shimano?
So I had SRAM ETAP 1x. So.
Okay, because I've heard Shimano, you void your warranty if you pee on it. So so it's a good thing you're running SRAM.
My mechanic at Scott at Bloomington Cycle Fitness, I think I pretty much voided the warranty of any maintenance on that bike for a long time. I think I posted some pictures on Instagram of me washing it, and people were like, "You're still 2 or 3 washes from being able to bring that in the shop." I bet.
I mean, it can't be any worse than those farm roads we were riding through. That was it's all like,
you could smell the manure, man.
Oh gosh, it's all like washed onto the road, Oh man, it was awful. But God, I can't believe that. I mean, honestly, it's a funny story, but God, that's smart, man. I wish I would have thought of it. I mean,
well, I think whoever's dad or support was who yelled out, "Do you need me to clean your drivetrain?" I'm like, I do. And then later on, I didn't clean it, but I peed on it.
Oh my God. So did you did it last because honestly probably that last time we only had, I don't know, another few miles of the real bad stuff, and then we were basically we came together with the 62 riders or the 62 course. Yep. So I mean, was your drivetrain pretty much good condition as good as it can be, could be?
I had the middle down to the 10. I never got the climbing gears back. But at that point, there was a lot of road and a lot of jumping and hammering from one group to the other. And
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, I was never so grateful to merge back with the other racers though, because you'd see these groups and I'm
Holy
like,
cow.
just let me get to this group. And they were a lot fresher, cleaner, and I thought the riders were all pretty funny because they would just look at us and just be like, bro, you doing the 100?
Yeah. Well,
And I was like, yep.
That was, what a difference. So last year, again, I mean, keep comparing it to last year, but only 2 riders from the 62 caught us last year. And that was Alexi and
Hugo.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And this year, I felt like all of the 62 riders caught me. Like, it was like one group went by and I would jump on this like huge group. And then I'm like, what am I doing? I can't. They're all, they're 19 miles into their 60-mile ride. And they're all like attacking every single hill. I'm like, I can't stay with these guys. This is the dumbest thing. So finally, I mean, I'm sure, I'm guessing you did too, but I fell into a group of some riders that I was like, this is perfect. They're pushing me, but they're not destroying me, and this is what I need to get me through the rest of this day.
Yep, they had all their gears and they were running 32 gravel slicks.
Yeah.
We got a bike with like 6 pounds of shit on it. You got a frozen camelback. We got pee and ice on our cassettes. Like, we're just not in a good place, and we're just rolling with these people who are like, oh man, I feel like I got a little splash on my back. Like, let me get that off for you. You're good. Let's pull. Come on, let's go.
Man, well, I mean, yeah, I guess like to go back to your like, it's snuck up on us. That's how I felt the whole time. It's like, this is a totally different experience, but we had no control over the weather, and I think for those who actually, like, their bikes didn't completely fall apart. I know probably a lot of people had to quit just because their bikes would not operate. But man, for anyone that attempted to ride it, hats off, because it was a day, and it was definitely, it had to be one of the hardest races I think I've ever done.
I think this was I think it was my 7th Barry. When I first started, I did several years of the 36. So I did the 19-degree year.
Okay.
And that one was cold, but it was dry and cold, and it just stayed the same. But the worst year I've ever done was the 38 degrees and rain sideways year.
Yeah, 17, I think.
Yeah, where like no disc brakes, you couldn't see from your glasses, but if you took it off your glasses, you'd be blind. And the rain was coming in sideways. I sprinted in with a teammate of mine just for fun because we're idiots. And literally, we're like Fred Flintstone trying to stop all the way down that street towards the road closure signs, and it was crazy. And I'm pretty sure we sat in the car for at least an hour shivering afterwards that year.
Yeah,
so I would say this one's pretty close to 17. We'd have to see if there's an all-time worst ranking, but I think it's a pretty close one.
Well, I guess the difference, I mean, I think like adding that, it being 100 miles is. I didn't ride in 17, but like just the fact that we were out there for 6+ hours. Like that to me takes it. Oh, I wanted to say this, and you mentioned the 6.5 hour mark for the mug, but I looked back last year to see how many people got within the time limit of the mug versus this year. And, 95 people got underneath 6.5 hours last year. Guess how many people got under 6.5 hours this year?
I'm guessing it's got to be like 19 or 20.
19, yes.
Yeah. Because the worst is I got a text from a teammate, congrats on getting the mug in a brutal day. And then I get back and I load my phone and I'm like, that was false hope, jerk. Thanks for that message.
I mean, you better believe that as I was riding, I'm like looking down, like, man, I sure hope nothing goes wrong because I'm like right on the cusp here. But when I went to pick up the mug, I was like, this is the hardest I've had to work. Like, this is my third mug, and definitely the hardest I've worked for this mug.
The pictures I saw of you, you looked a lot more prouder of your mug this year. You were,
oh man, I was carrying that thing around. I was milking it for all it's worth.
If you put those two mugs together, I'll tell you this one is going to rank higher. The other one's going to get pushed back a little further in the cupboard for sure.
Oh yeah, absolutely. When I finished, and I was like, kind of that moment of, I need to change and I need to get warmer, and my brain wasn't working, and I'm kind of like riding to the car, limping to the car, whatever, and I see Nick Stanko, and he's like in the car, like he looking in the same like ragged state, and I'm like, Nick, man, that was ridiculous, and he's like, oh, thank God, thank God you thought it was hard too. It was so hard and the conditions were awful. I was like, yeah, man, we all did the same thing. It was ridiculous. He's like, okay. And then we have a little talk about how hard it was. Then I walk a little bit further to my car and, like trying to get rid of all my gear and everything. And then I hear from across the road, hey, Trevor. And I look and it's Jason Lowitz, and he has his window down. He's like, that was really hard, wasn't it? So I think the consensus is, yes, it was a very difficult day.
Yeah, I agree. Like, anybody who didn't finish or had bad stuff or pulled, there's no shame in that game. That was, respect to everybody who went through that. Because like you said, I think that when you know it's going to be bad conditions, you have a little more preparation, but the whole sneaking up on you thing of this year, just with like you said, the temps just kept dropping.
Yep.
So it was like, if you had a bad situation with gears, unless you peed on it, it wasn't getting better. There wasn't a lot of shining light of things improving until you were done. So yeah, I agree.
Yeah, and I think that's what makes races like this, like Barry, so special. You just don't know what you're gonna get, and it's gonna be a new experience every year.
I'll keep coming back.
Yeah. Obviously you've done so many. So I guess see you next year.
You bet, man. I can't wait. Who knows what's gonna happen next? At least next year we get April, so it's right. It rotates. So
yeah. I think we'll be a couple weeks later in the year. So that could mean nothing. It could mean
we probably just jinxed ourselves and everybody else who signs up for the 100. Sorry, everybody.
Hey, what you got next? So you doing the rough road this weekend?
Yep. So we're just going to keep the shit show rolling. And there's right now like a 45% chance of either snow or rain for Rough Road 100 in Morris, Illinois. But that's a very different, it's a road race with 9 sectors of gravel.
Oh, cool.
So it's a super crazy fast, and like Project Echelon's sending a team. It's going to be pretty
nice.
Bananas for sure. But if the weather goes bad, it'll be crazy again.
You're gonna run your Bo Jackson with 50s this time?
But my Bo Jackson has been washed once, the cassette multiple times. It's nice and clean on the wall. We're gonna go back to 32 slicks on the deep dish race wheels. I will have tubes with 80 millimeter stems.
Smart.
Just in case.
Smart.
No, on the racier Diverge, it's a little more. But there'll be road bikes at this event. Like, there'll be people who are risking it for the biscuit, running 28s and just seeing if they can make a break that sticks.
That's awesome. Well, good luck. Stay upright.
Thanks, man. What do you got next?
There's a gravel race this weekend around here. It's the Dirty 30, which has like a bunch of different distances, and there's a 130-mile distance. So nice. I think I have to decide. Tomorrow is when the registration closes. I haven't registered yet, so it depends. Like, man, my body, like, I'm a little rough after last weekend, so I was hoping.
I'm not gonna lie, I got a massage yesterday,
yeah.
And the masseuse is like, there's some weird things going on in your glutes and your IT bands from your right leg to your left leg, and I said, well, I'm right leg dominant, and I rode 100 miles in the wrong gear, so I would think that my body would be a little cranky. Hey, Rough Road's still registration's open, man. Get on it, man. It's only 4.5 hour drive, or no, it's an hour less. 3.5, 4 hours from you in the time change.
Well, there you go. No, I'm not going to do it. especially with that
Forecast.
the weather forecast. Cool, Tom. Thanks, man. Thanks for sharing your disgusting story with us.
I'm here to entertain. If the race doesn't go well, it's always good to have a couple fun stories to share afterwards.
Yeah, definitely. Hey, congrats on finishing.
Thanks, buddy. Congrats on your finish, man. We'll see you at the next one.
Appreciate it. The Dirty Chain Podcast is a Michigan Midpack Media production in partnership with KOM Cycling, the source for your bike accessories and necessities. Connect with us on Instagram and Facebook at Dirty Chain Podcast. Email dirtychainpodcast@gmail.com. If you are enjoying the podcast, please leave us a rating and review on whatever platform you use to listen, or share the episodes with your friends. Audio editing and original music by myself, Trevor Gibney. Thank you to Tom for joining me on the podcast and sharing his disgusting story. And thank you to the whole Barry-Roubaix crew for everything they put into making this year successful. And as always, keep your chain clean, but get your chain dirty. We will see you in the Midpack.